What is up, guys? So we're talking about the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. The SLR McLaren chassis code of C199 for the coupe and R199 for the roadster was launched back in 2003 with model years from 2004 to 2010 depending on which market the car was sold in. So much can be said about this collaboration between Mercedes-AMG and McLaren, but this video is just about some weird wheel options for the car that no one seems to really talk about. If you'd like to learn more about the details of the 199 chassis SLR product as a whole, I highly recommend Going Man's highly detailed 40-minute long video, and I'll link that in the description below. Now, if you've seen the SLR McLaren in real life or just on the internet in general, it's more than likely beyond these 19-inch turbine wheels, a very iconic wheel design at this point. You can see I have this 1/18th scale model I've had probably since I was 5 years old, and it represents these turbines pretty well. In fact, you've probably seen most launch specs are in the silver color with the turbine wheels and perhaps the red interior. Believe it or not, however, the SLR McLaren was actually mostly developed using 18-inch wheels, not the 19s you see there. The 18-inch wheel options actually carry over to production models, but almost no one has these wheel options for some reason. You might see some early prototypes of very early production cars that are used for media purposes that have 18-inch wheels, but they're almost never really shown off today, and pretty much every car you see that was sold, at least in the US, has the 19-inch turbines. Funnily enough, I did come across a Jalopnik article by Rafael Orlov, which also included some information on these very strange wheels. I'll put the link in the description as well. Here we see in a page of an SLR's owner's manual a list of wheel and tire specs, for filling up information or replacing tires. You can see we have the 19-inch turbines first, we all know and love, but then we see two 18-inch options which we never really know about. There's a 10-spoke option or also a 5-spoke option, both identical specs, however these offsets are slightly different from the turbines. Starting off with the 10 spokes, there is very little information about these wheels. In fact, almost the only thing I could find was this one picture out of an SLR brochure, and it doesn't even show the full car, just it shows a little screenshot of the wheel on the car. They're very basic looking, honestly, something you'd probably see on something of the likes of an R171 SLK from 2005-6-ish, that time period. Here are a couple pictures I did dig up, which has the 10 spokes. You can see a picture of the SLR with the 10 spokes alongside some early prototypes which actually used TVR bodies, which a lot of people don't actually know about. Luckily, I managed to find one YouTube video, just one video, that had an SLR with these wheels on it. It looks pretty cool. In fact, there's one comment in the video that says it's a very rare type of wheel, which it is a very rare wheel to see in the SLR. It looks like a production car as well, maybe some dealership of some sort. Yeah, very strange, very interesting wheel design, very basic, but it kind of fits the SLR's body. I wouldn't say it fits it as well as the 19-inch turbines do, but it is a very interesting looking wheel. I also found a random set of these 4 wheels, a full set for sale on eBay, for over 2,000 bucks. Now, yeah, it's a lot of money, but for an SLR wheel, it seems almost too cheap. Especially because there's not many around and no one really knows what the status of these wheels are. I would love to know the story of this, how these ended up for sale. Now, this screenshot's from quite a while ago, so I'm not sure if they're still for sale. But if you guys find them, or if I find them again, I'll put them in the description. Now, onto the 18-inch 5-spoke SLR wheels. Now, these, I think more people have seen these in general. There's also been a new sort of up-and-coming trend with these wheels we'll talk about later. So from what I understand, these 18-inch wheels are what the SLR was mostly developed on. So when people say the car was developed using 18-inch wheels, it's usually going to be these 5 spokes. Unlike the 10 spokes, I actually think that the 5 spokes fit the SLR's body quite a bit better. They look a little bit more refined in a way. They look more suitable for the SLR's sculpted body, and I do quite like them. I think their concavity looks pretty good against the SLR's rear as well. But the most pictures you can find are going to be from very early production days. You can see these pics from a guy named Thomas's page. He actually works for McLaren. He has some fantastic SLR content. I highly recommend checking out his Instagram page. But you can see some pics in front of the MTC, the McLaren Technology Center, of some SLRs, very early ones representing these wheels. These pics must be from 2002, 3, in fact probably more like 3 or 4. But I also found one single SLR 5-spoke wheel for sale. Not a set of 4, just one wheel. So I would love to know the story behind that as well, but that could be a fancy coffee table for someone out there. I'll put in the description below if it's still for sale. You might be able to get yourself one 5-spoke SLR wheel for pretty cheap. But yeah, pretty interesting. While on the topic of the 5-spoke SLR wheels, I must mention a new version of these. Yeah, that's right, a new version of a wheel for a car that's 20 years old. These are 19-inch wheels, but they're heavily based on the 5-spoke 18s you saw earlier. They look almost the same, just a size bigger. So while these wheels do look very familiar when comparing to the 18-inch 5-spokes, these actually are a new wheel from McLaren Special Operations for the new SLR by MSO program. The new SLR by MSO program is pretty cool. Basically, they recondition existing SLRs and they make numerous improvements to the car along with a completely bespoke set of options for exterior and interior. With this program, MSO introduced this 19-inch version of the 5-spoke wheel with a little MSO engraving on the side of it, which is pretty cool. I also love the finishes they come in. You can see they come in a very sort of similar silver finish as like the 19-inch turbines, but they also come in a more polished finish, which I think is very cool. Lots of different specs of these you can see here, all these of which you can find on Thomas's page. Very, very cool. I do love some of the new SLR specs they're coming out with, especially the green one that they first made, actually, the first SLR by MSO example that came out. I think it's their prototype one. I also found this parts diagram showing all of the factory SLR wheels. So on the far left we have the 5-spoke 18-inch wheels, then there's the 19-inch 722 wheels, the 19-inch turbine wheels, the 18-inch 10-spokes, and the 19-inch 722S multi-spokes. Speaking of the 722 variants, here are their wheels. So the 722 had these 12-spoke 19s with black faces and polished lips. Then the roadster version of the 722, known as the 722S, had these 19-inch multi-spokes in a gunmetal finish. These wheels were also featured on the rather polarizing SLR McLaren edition, not to be confused with the SLR by MSO. Two different programs, but also both by MSO. Well guys, that kind of wraps up what I want to talk about with these very strange SLR wheels. I know not my most normal video, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. But before I go, there's a few honorable mentions I should say. And in fact, one of them is actually right there, from the Z199 SLR McLaren Sterling Moss. So the Sterling Moss had these very interesting 19-inch wheels, which were unlike the other SLR variants, although I think they could come with other standard SLR wheels. You can see that it's these twin-spoke 19-inch. So they're kind of like a 5-spoke pattern, but in a twin-spoke format. It almost seems like they inspired the base wheels for the upcoming SLS AMG, which was kind of coming out around the same time as this car did. Actually, a lot of features in this car kind of went to the SLS, which we'll talk about in another video maybe. But yeah, these wheels were not available on the standard SLR at all, just the Sterling Moss, which makes these very, very rare, as the car itself is very rare. But yeah, that's the Sterling Moss. Anyways, moving on. We also can't forget about the SLR concept cars. So these actually were around quite a bit before the production car came out, and there are lots of changes were made. You might be able to see there's actually one of the SLR concepts right there. So there were two Vision SLR concept cars that were made. One was a coupe and one was a roadster. We'll first talk about the roadster, as that features a set of turbine wheels very similar to what ended up being the production version, but they're not quite the same. You can see there's a little bit of a minor difference there, perhaps things that wouldn't be suitable for production, maybe wouldn't perform as well, but they look kind of cool. Like I said, not quite the production ready version, but you can see the inspiration for the production turbines. The Vision SLR coupe concept, which you can see I actually have a model right over here. I think my parents bought this long ago, when I was a very small child, maybe back in like '02 or something like that. You can see that this concept for the coupe features these very cool looking sort of, I don't even know how to describe them, but they're known today as the Alphard wheels. So these wheels might look a bit familiar to you because they did go to production, but not for the SLR. So these wheels became known as the Alphard wheels on the R230 chassis SL. So this was an option on any non-AMG SL from about 2003 to I want to say 2005 or 6. In fact, my dad actually had this set of all Alphard wheels, the production version, on his 2004 SL600 from back in the day. It's kind of funny because nowadays they're one of the most sought after wheels for the R230 SL, and I actually find them to be one of my most favorite wheels that Mercedes has ever made. It all came from an SLR concept car. Anyways guys, that does wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making a random video like this. It's a lot of fun doing some research on an old topic you didn't really think about. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like and maybe even leave a comment on what I should make next. Got a few videos planned, kind of similar to this. But yeah, see you guys in the next one.